Good evening, I'm Tim Langford and welcome to Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source Television. I represent the League of Women Voters tonight and I'm very glad to have you joining us. We're talking with two of the four candidates for City of Houston District G up for election this year. And we're going to try and ask some questions that we think you might be interested in hearing from and learn a little bit more about them as well as their positions affecting issues in their district and in the city of Houston. So I'd like to welcome current City Council member Carla Cisneros from District H and Isabel Longoria, who is also running for District H this year. So let's start off with the council member first. With the first question, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you deserve to be reelected to District H, represent District H.
Well, as a communities activist, as a former school board trustee, as a former HISD teacher, classroom teacher, it became crystal clear to me that the city wasn't doing enough in its part to support the success of children that are going to be our future workforce. So that's why I ran, that's what drives me now, and that's my focus is because the infrastructure of that the city supports with education is as important an investment that as was the digging the ship channel was in the 20th century. That's where wealth will come from in our city. Knowledge is the basis for wealth now, and so we need to do a better job of that on all levels. But the city has a role in that too, and that's what I'm all about.
Okay, and Isabel Longoria, we'll have you answer the same question.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here and I'm running for District H because I'm passionate about public service. I've had the honor of growing up here in Houston, but both my parents are immigrants and my dad's an architect. So from an early age, I was focused on affordable housing and planning and really thinking about communities and how everything fits together. And after having served on the Planning Commission and worked for Senator Sylvia Garcia and Representative Jessica Farrar, I've just really fallen into this passion for public service, and I'm excited to bring that passion into District H and help fit all those pieces together. When we talk about flooding, when we talk about affordable housing, when we talk about civic engagement, there's no piece that isn't connected to the other, and I'm really excited to take on those issues.
All right. We'll move on to our second question. We'll start with you, Isabel Longoria. You mentioned it. Flooding is a major concern here in the Houston area. We saw that just about a month ago when Hurricane Imelda dropped, several inches of rainfall across the Houston area and east of Houston. What steps would you take to address flooding, not only in your district, but how would your stance on flooding affect the entire city?
Yeah, I'm really excited to stand by the plans that are already going into effect with 100 resilient cities and the climate change plan for the city of Houston. And I think we know we're going to need someone who's a little bit more bold in taking it into the future and saying it's going to take negotiation with the petrochemical industry. It's going to take some risks from our homeowners and our other businesses to say it's part of our generation that we have to take on those issues. We have to look at our development codes and say what's working, what's not working. We can't keep throwing dirt on properties. It raises the property, that water goes somewhere else, and saying that's someone else's problem, not mine, because as a city, it's everyone else's problem when we have buildings that flood. And so I'd really like to look at some more bold things like how do we bring back and incentivize pier and beam construction? How do we get affordable housing? And how do we incentivize not just high density, but medium density projects like duplexes and fourplexes in non-floodplain areas so that we can bring more people kind of to that higher ground that we naturally have. But I think at the end of the day, it's really just believing the climate change is real, believing the data we have now. And if you don't believe it already, we've had 3 500-year floods in the last 2 years. Those are happening more frequently, and maybe we need to start using those as the annual flood we're going to have instead of the every once in a while flood, and really start planning to a future where we are going to be impacted by more and more here on the coast.
Okay. And, Councilmember?
Well, there's a lot of different pieces to this, and as a district council member, the focus initially is within the district, and across District H, there's a lot of different conditions. Some areas are higher than others, and some flood all the time, and some rarely do. But and from storm to storm, you don't know what's going to happen. So one of the biggest challenges is identifying who flooded, because not everyone even complains. So really reaching into the communities and contacting people directly, saying, did you take on water? Do you know who did? And then we put together, in-house our own maps, identifying areas, and then pass that on to different, parts of the administration to help us deal with things. So one of the things I've done that's been really helpful is an infrastructure identification list. It's a document that has been very, very helpful in getting projects that aren't current capital improvement projects, but it's been a great communication tool for other departments and other partners to help us address issues like some of the flooding that we have identified. So District H is an old. Has some of the oldest neighborhoods, some of the oldest infrastructure. It was designed primarily on a ditch system, and so flooding in District H, a lot of that happens when the ditches are blocked, and so illegal dumping comes into that, and educating people about the need to not dump and certainly to report, and so we can help that, but also the need to regrade ditches, to size culverts properly, to make sure that the flow lines are working. That's an expensive process. It's happening, though. We've got through some SWAT projects, some that we're working on in neighborhoods. So, but we need to do that, for all of H. For new construction, we have new ordinances that are already, required zero net fill, and have established, even with the 100-year floodplain, that there can be construction, to the inundation level plus 2 feet. So those are good starts. We will have more accurate data and better maps at some point, when that's released, and then we'll need to adjust to those. Other flooding is caused by highway construction, or highways that are adjacent to neighborhoods that trap water, and particularly like I-45 and I-10, that those will only be solved when we're able to address a reconstructed highway. So it changes all over, but it's pretty broad too.
Okay, well, let me follow up with that, because our next question kind of leads into that question. You mentioned that, Councilmember, that some of the infrastructure is among the oldest in the city. Mm-hmm. So I want to start with Isabel with this one, but so what are some other pressing issues, such as infrastructure? What other pressing issues should be, and how would you address them if you're on council?
Absolutely. I think the number one pressing issue, not just for the city, but for District H, is affordable housing, and just housing in period that is going to withstand the different floods and other events that we have coming up. Most houses that flooded in the past events are those built really before 1970. Newer homes kind of build up to those newer standards, more or less. And we know that our infrastructure only really kind of flows water out at 2 inches per hour. So if you have a storm, and we are increasingly having bigger storms that are dropping more than 2 inches per hour, you're looking at housing stock where before Harvey, we were 300,000 units behind in affordable housing. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, affordable housing is defined at 30% of whatever your average annual income is. So if the average annual income for the city of Houston is about $75,000, you're looking at a house that's maybe $20,000 a year, so just under $1,200 a month. That's not actually a lot, right? That's most people mortgages, and we're finding fewer and fewer homes in that bracket. And there's some very concrete things we can do. My time on the Planning Commission, I really noticed a couple of loopholes. For example, the Planning Commission is not allowed to ask about the affordability of projects, whether they're in the floodplain, kind of any of those issues. You're allowed to ask the footprint of it, how close it's going to be to the street, and whether or not it's going to pose a health or traffic impact. But it's kind of those things where we're saying, wait, why wouldn't we allow the commission and the folks who are supposed to rule kind of on these buildings to ask those very serious questions? Those are some of the loopholes we can bring out. And also support programs that are already here in the city called the Houston Land Bank, the Houston Land Trust, and Rebuild Together Houston that help expand those programs into the Latino communities that we have in Houston. Because District H has the fastest gentrifying neighborhoods in Houston with the East End, the near North Side, Independence Heights, and even to some effect the East Sunset Heights and Monty Beach area. And so that's what I'm excited about. You know, I'm a big nerd who's going to go in there and find those loopholes and say, yeah, let's talk about Chapter 42 Ordinance X and move forward with it. And I think we also need to be aware that development has been happening unchecked, right? We know we don't have zoning in Houston. So if we don't have zoning, then we need another balance for that check. And that's got to be a stronger planning commission and stronger leadership at the city to say, you know what, this isn't going to work. And maybe there's some other benefits. But at the end of the day, if we allowed homes to keep being flooded, that's fewer affordable homes in Houston, fewer homes that people can move to or, you know, invest in the future. And are we harming ourselves then and property value as a total if we just keep eroding that base because we're not willing to make those decisions now? And I know housing is very intimate to folks, right? It's where you raise your family. It's where you sleep every night. And that's why we have to make sure that we preserve that and make that our #1 issue.
Okay. Councilmember?
Affordable housing is part of it, but I would first go back to the question about infrastructure. Because there's more to do there too. The sidewalks in the District H, many of the streets don't have enough right of way because of the ditches, you know, and so they were designed for people to walk in the streets back when there wasn't all the traffic that we have now. You know, going back to retrofit, you know, old neighborhoods that weren't designed to accommodate bike lanes or wider sidewalks that we do now is a big challenge, you know, and people want, you know, the mobility and pedestrian friendly streets, you know, that to be a walkable city. So those are other issues. But I think besides infrastructure, I mean, and we still have community sewer lines in District H. You know, I mean, those are old systems that we're transitioning out of. But beyond that, I think poverty is a huge concern. You know, and that we still have a dividing line in our city, you know, that the west side of town is more affluent, the east side of town really struggles, and that's where a lot of District H falls. Most of it does, and that's where you see all these other things play out, like affordable housing, you know, like health care, like getting a good education, you know, and I think that's where I see the most important work that we can do is really addressing that, you know, making sure that especially young people, you know, are able to really take advantage of the opportunities to grow and learn and be healthy, you know, and to have opportunities to be successful. And so when we support our parks, when we support our libraries, you know, when we're supporting affordable early child care, when we're when we're making sure that children are healthy, you know, and that the air that they breathe is clean, those are all things that really impact the success of a child, and that we need to really embrace it and know that, you know, that what the job we're doing right now for a child is so strongly affects, you know, how that child turns out and what kind of citizen that person's going to be, what kind of worker that's going to be, you know, will they be able to hold a job, you know, stay in a relationship, be healthy, not get cancer, you know, all these things, you know, are they going to be stay out of the criminal justice system? It's a huge and very important investment, but it's so much is tied to, you know, to poverty and the barriers that poverty puts up for people, and a lot of them are small barriers, you know, it just deep sixes everything, you know. So I think, you know, that's our biggest challenge.
Okay. All right. Well, the next question, you know, transportation is a big issue in our city, and we're always sitting in traffic somewhere at some point in time in our lives here in Houston. There's some Sorry about that. How important are transportation issues to your district? And we'll start with you, Councilmember.
It's huge, and there's a number of issues going on. The biggest one, right, for us, for District H, and will be for years now, is the reconstruction of I-45. You know, it's a project that's been in the works for almost 20 years, and so now it's upon us. And as you know, there's all the years that TxDOT's been collecting information, you know, and input from, you know, now generations of people. They have not been very good about sharing back what they've, you know, what that input was. And so now we're presented with a plan that looks maybe good for the southern side of downtown, but not so good for, you know, for the north and for District H. In fact, there's a lot of very upset people that, you know, that see just things being taken away and not a benefit to the, you know, to the neighborhoods. So it's important that we get this right, because whatever happens now, you know, whatever, if they come in and implement something, we are stuck with that for the next half a century. And so we know we have to have a safer roadway. You know, there's a lot of accidents and fatalities there. It's a very dangerous stretch. We know that we have flooding issues that are already there, that were created, you know, by the highways. We have to fix those. You know, so to completely say, you know, stop it, we don't want it at all, that's not really the answer. I think delay, get it right, is where I'm at. You know, I think I'm still in the, you know, we can fix this mode, and I hope that that's really what's going to happen. You know, the city has now had a series of meetings to gather input and develop, you know, with some technical advisors, a new plan that will be presented back to the community of what people are saying that they would like to see incorporated, and then that'll be submitted to TxDOT. But I'm just so grateful and so appreciative to all the people who have rallied and really, you know, put a lot of pressure and, you know, to make this happen, because TxDOT has not been listening really to anyone that it looks like. I think that they are, you know, kind of, it's gotten their attention that there's been so much, you know, organized, you know, around this effort, and it's an opportunity to get it right. You know, we want something that's visionary, that looks to the future, you know, for how we're going to have transportation, and how public transportation needs to be a growing piece of how our city operates. So I'm still optimistic. We will see, you know, but I'm, you know, if it doesn't look like it's a good plan, you know, and my community doesn't think it's a good plan, I'm all for putting on the brakes and just say we have to go back to the starting line again and take the chance we have now to get it right.
Okay. Isabel?
Yeah, I've been involved with the I-45 expansion project too for multiple years, and even with my time during AARP, I really challenged TxDOT to say, why don't we design a freeway system that is geared towards people who are 70 and driving? And the idea being that if you take some of our most vulnerable drivers and they feel comfortable right in this system, both with stopping and speed and the safety of on and off ramps, what if we start changing our mind on kind of the average person that we're designing our transit to? And that's one of the things we push too with the light rail, right? High comfort light rail, high comfort buses. You say, well, those folks who take buses, they don't need comforts, right? They should just be grateful we have a public transit system. I challenge everyone who thinks that way, wait until you want to go to rodeo, wait until you want to go to an Astros game, and then what do you want out of the systems that we're investing in together? Do you want systems that you feel comfortable riding in, that have Wi-Fi perhaps that you can use to work as you're commuting in, that you can use to talk to your friends, right, or listen to music, and also think of high comfort as how easy is it to get on the rail. I think it was just this month that Metro released the app that you can actually now buy a ticket through the app and get on a platform instead of having to have cash with you or a credit card and then take that out in a public space to do an interaction. I think we've got to ask ourselves about kind of the cascading issues after that. Who are the contractors that work with Metro to clean the stations, right? To keep them safe? How fast is Metro Police getting out there and responding to issues both kind of big and urgent, and also sometimes if we ask ourselves, hey, there's someone on the platform who's making me feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, can we respond to that just as quickly? And Metro Next is coming up, the bond election this November as well with our election. And one thing that I've noticed with Metro Next is it looks like a great plan. And what we're really going to do is vote for the money to give Metro, right, to make these plans happen. But what I'd love to see from Metro, right, and our regional kind of transportation folks is when we expand I-45 or do something with that, right, prospectively, it would cut off the red line, green line, and purple line. So what are we going to do, right? And all of those lines go through District H. What are we going to do for the folks who are going to need to route around or be able to walk to those bus stations, to those transit stations, and then taking it back to 45? How can we think differently and innovatively? And again, say, let's pause. Let's see what we really need for the future. Is it more HOV lanes in the middle that people use twice a day? Maybe, right? And most folks pay and say, well, I'm just going to pay and just me, myself drive. So I don't think that adding HOV means that you get a lot of extra folks riding down there. I would love to do something like turn those into transit commercial corridors. Let's get our 18-wheelers, which make it more dangerous for us on 45, into those middle lanes. Let them pay to get in and out of the city faster, and you would actually reduce congestion times for everyone. You would reduce fatalities for everyone, and you would actually start making a significant impact on air quality, because it's those 18-wheelers and bigger vehicles moving slowly through the city that pump out more pollution than our cars every day. And so, I think we really need to look at I-45 and our other projects and say it's not just enough to have the tracks or the roads right on the ground. How can we make it so people actually want to use them? Because if you build it and they don't come, then you're not really using our dollars effectively.
Okay. I want to sneak in another question related to this, and we'll just give a quick 1-minute response to this. I know a lot of the concern with the I-45 expansion and rebuild is that there's a possibility that it could go through the Independence Heights area, which is in your districts. How would you protect Independence Heights, and if there's, how would you respond to their concerns that they might be losing their neighborhood? I guess that's the question I want to ask, and we'll start with the council member.
It's interesting. The Independence Heights, the leadership there is very strategic, and they are, it's an important historic neighborhood. It's the first black municipality in the state of Texas. So they are really, really all about holding on to their identity and their heritage, but they are also working it, so that so in their conversations with TxDOT, it's like, okay, if you take this from us, if you take this important, this land from us, and we're losing houses, we're losing churches, what are you going to give us? How are you going to make it up to us? And so they're looking to see how they can leverage that into other improvements that they've been seeking. So I applaud them for that. I mean, they are really in a detention pond that's been created by the highways. There's been a lot of flooding again. There's homes that have flooded for the 6th time since the 90s. It's a huge area that's affected, and they don't deserve that, So they are very, very keen on getting this fixed, and having, not stopping the project because going forward, they want the flooding to be addressed. So that's, not everyone feels the same way. Up and down the 45 people have different opinions, but Independence Heights wants something to happen so that it'll relieve the flooding, and that then they can leverage it into something better for their neighborhood too, and in other parts.
Yeah, you don't become really the first black city in Texas by being the kind of folks who just roll over and let things happen. And so I think you need the leadership who's going to raise the flag early and often, and then also be the kind of leader who is broaching those conversations with TxDOT and saying, no, you're going to come to the table and you're going to keep talking. And I don't care how long or how often these conversations happen until everyone feels comfortable with what's happening. But yeah, I think there's an opportunity with 45 to get rid of some of those motels where there's some nefarious activity happening, but also an opportunity for folks who otherwise may not have gotten the same payday. But those are things regulated really at the state and federal level. How much are you allowed to pay someone for their home if you're going to purchase it in order to build this freeway? And that's where we need to start working with our state and federal officials, and where I have those relationships as well to say, hey, your next session, the next time Congress meets, we've really got to talk about what it looks like for the businesses and the residents there as well to get a proper payout, and then make sure that they feel comfortable with the ultimate deal. Because because we or TxDOT or the city might feel that, hey, we offered them something great. You've got to believe people when they tell you it's not enough. This is what I really need.
Okay. Well, Houston's a very diverse city, and I know District H is probably among the most diverse in the city of Houston. I know you've got some traditionally Hispanic neighborhoods like the East End. You have some traditionally African American neighborhoods up to the northeast side. How would you, as a council member in District H, communicate with the diverse population in your district and represent your various constituencies while serving in City Hall? And I'll start with Isabel.
Yeah, that's some of the work that I've been passionate about and doing for the last 8-9 years, right? It's not just sending an email every once in a while and saying, here are the things, I hope you see them, get out in your community. It's using the tools that we would use for campaigning or any other work, the block walking, right? The phone calling, the getting on programs like this and getting the word out early and often, and actually being the boots on the ground. You can't sit in the city council office where you have a paid parking lot behind 2 locked doors where you have to make an appointment to come meet with someone. You've got to be out in the community and saying the way we interact as people is changing, and so the way we reach out to people needs to change too. When are we going to our local coffee shops? On the campaign, I've got a commitment to only support local businesses, to only host events at local businesses, and to just be out there hearing what people are talking about, interviewing the business owners and saying, what are you hearing? What's going on? And do that kind of communal kind of relation work just as much as anything else. And so I think another advantage I have is that I do speak Spanish. My dad and my grandmother are Mexican. Every week we communicate in Spanish, and that's what we do back home. So having a district that's over 50% Hispanic, where the majority of folks actually speak Spanish at home at their primary language, there's a certain kind of translating and transcreation and transcultural interaction that really only happens if you kind of really get what's going on, right? The tamales for Christmas is not the same as your turkey dinner for Christmas, and being able to talk about those things. And so at the end of the day, it's just being as accessible as possible, having those community office hours, and then really committing to doing those programs that I've done in the past, again, for the City Council.
Okay. Council member?
One of the things, coming in as I did, with the commitment to, bringing opportunities to children, that is throughout the whole district. It is really, I've been working really hard to reach into all corners of the district that had not been very engaged or not participating. The 2 previous council members were from the near north side, and over the 12 years they were there, that's a neighborhood that got a lot of attention. And so, for me to be pushing myself out into areas that really felt and have expressed to me that they felt underrepresented has been a big mission, and reaching people that have not been engaged, areas that don't complain, that don't report, that don't call 311, that don't call the police. They'll maybe, put something on social media, but that has been a huge challenge and a huge mission for my whole staff. So we are accessible. I go to everything I can possibly go to. My days are very long, and my weeks are full all 7 days a week. But I think that's important, to be going to to everything, because that's where you do get to meet people. There's so many people that don't come to a community meeting. So putting yourself out there and aggressively, getting into to small situations is a great way to reach into a community. I have a newsletter that goes out every single week that that connects with people. We have a very active Facebook page for the council office. So I have a very active website that's the council office with lots of information that we direct people to regularly. But I think I have a wonderful staff. Half of them are bilingual, and they're committed to public service, and customer service, and and very knowledgeable. And we keep hours. There is always someone to answer a phone call between 8 and 5, every day, and so that's important. Not all offices work that way, but mine does, and I'm very proud of my staff that's been with me. Everyone will have been with me now for at least 3 years in January, and so it's a wonderful, great team, and they are a big part of why we connect. And we regularly go to all the all the civic club meetings, and they're assigned to different ones, and then I try to touch touch as many as I can. But the relationships that they have formed with the communities also is so valuable. That people trust them and know. Part of it's been educating. Everyone we meet, to what a council office can do. A lot of people don't understand what a council office does, and so that's been part of it too.
Okay. Well, let me ask the next question then. So it's sort of diversity. We have a diversity of ideas around, in addition to the diversity of our population and age and the racial makeup. Obviously, there's a lot of personalities on city council that you have to work with in order to get things done for your district. How would you work with some of those maybe that you don't necessarily agree with 100% to make sure that your district is fairly represented and gets the support that it needs from the entire city council? And we'll start with you, Councilmember.
Yeah, going back to data, relying on on data, standing on that, and saying because people I will tell you, every single council member will be saying I need this, I need this, I need this, but being able to be not just emotional about it, but saying, and this is why, that's really what I do, and I think we've done a really good job of documenting, in terms of like getting along with people. It's when I was on the school board, I really came to value people who can discuss and disagree and learn from each other, listen with an open ear, because that kind of dialogue is valuable. That's where better ideas can spring from. If someone, the smartest person in the room is not going to have this good of an idea, a solution is a bunch of people who can bounce off each other and be challenged by that, but it requires, the respect, and I think, that's something I've been successful with, and I think, all the diversity that comes to represent the city of Houston at council is so valuable. I mean, every single person has something different to offer, and I think that when you can respect that and people see that, then and you can look to each other's strengths. That's important. So it's important to to be working together and collaborating, and that's how we move forward.
Okay, Isabel.
Yeah, having worked campaigns for quite a few people who are on city council now, I have some great relationships with, for example, Councilmember Gallegos, who abuts the district. I've got great relationships with some of the candidates who are coming up in C and B who are also bordering the city and the district. And one of the things we talk about is, what if we did block walks together and walk the borders of our district together? And then that day really talk about, what did you see on your side of the street and what did I see on my side of the street? And with the at-large members too, right? They kind of sit as the Senate over us on the House, if you will, as district members. What can we do to invite them proactively and not just say, hey, I'm going to invite you when a kid gets murdered in the district and there's a crisis, but I'm actually going to invite you to our super neighborhoods, our civic club meetings, our town halls, and introduce you, so that from the beginning it's not me and you competing and people seem to be our votes and our resources, right? It's, we have issues as a community, we have challenges, what can we do together? And I think at the end of the day, it's being able to take someone out to dinner and say, listen, what do you need for your district? What do I need for mine? And being honest about the horse trading that goes with it. It's, what they say about politics. You don't like seeing the sausage be made, but sometimes you've got to really say, hey, I need you to stick with me. This is important for the district. What's important for your district as well? What can I learn about? And how can we build that relationship of trust instead of sitting around the horseshoe and saying, well, it's me competing against them and it's me being able to out-argue them. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's not just from the mayor, where it's a strong mayoral form of government, and being able to say, hey, mayor, come in and see what's going on, instead of, hey, mayor, I hate you, screw you on this side, but now I need you. And so at the end of the day, it's as much people building, friendship building, relational building, and helping everyone see how much we are invested in things together, instead of just saying, well, here are the numbers and I'm going to out-argue you, and if I don't out-argue you, then oh well. Because I think our constituents expect us to get the job done, not make the best argument.
Okay, I'm going to sneak a question in here. We'll give a couple of minutes to answer this for each of you. It's regarding redistricting in the city after the 2020 census. If the city grows, I know there's provisions in the city charter that if there's so much growth that you have to add extra council seats or kind of redo it. So it's likely to come up during this term, these next 4 years that you guys one of you will be in office. How would you work with City Council on redistricting and to making sure that all the different constituencies in Houston are being served? And I'll start with Isabel, actually. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm really excited. When I worked at the state capitol, I actually did the redistricting last cycle for the state. And it's fascinating to see the numbers and how you break it up and all the computer programs. But the feedback we got really from residents is, keep it simple, stupid, right? If my neighborhood is this neighborhood and we see it together, let's keep it together. What if we split the city along freeways, which happen to be some of our most natural barriers, right? And actually keep neighborhoods contiguous with each other instead of saying, well, I'm going to carve it out because it looks great, you know, on a map and numbers and blah, blah, blah. Sometime you have to get your head away from the numbers and say, what makes sense, right? What's the common sense solution here? And I'd love to entertain, if not this time, but setting precedent moving forward. What if we got a nonpartisan board, right, of citizens, of data experts, of people from the Kinder Institute, right, or Rice and U of H and TSU and our other institutes to sit down and say, you know, if politics is involved, if you're involved in the district you might eventually represent, people are always going to have inherent interests. So how can we take it out of our hands and set the precedent for this truly nonpartisan, non-biased entity to help split up the city in a common sense way?
Okay. Councilmember?
You know, there are 11 council districts, and after the census, the population is divided pretty evenly between them. Since the last census, District H has lost population. So at the time when they were all split up, there were about 180,000 people apiece, and we're now like 160 something. You know, so we've still been a district that people have been moving out of. That, you know, has reversing some, but we have not seen the growth like the southwest part of town has. So what's going to happen, because now, you know, we're a little over, you know, probably 200,000 you know, at least, you know, per district. So District H is going to grow, and you know, and what direction that will grow in, I don't know. But I mean, I really like the idea of logical boundaries, you know, because right now it's silly, you know, to have this side of the street be one district and the other side of the street be another, when really it's the same community, you know, and there's that kind of gerrymandering is confusing to people, you know, to residents who don't know who they belong to and who to seek help from, you know. So I would like to see it make more sense. You know, like we were talking about Independence Heights earlier. Last year, for the first time, Booker T. Washington, which is the high school there, and it's, you know, it just celebrated it a year ago. Its 125th anniversary. Became majority Hispanic last year. So this year it's the second year. The neighborhoods are changing. You know, so you know. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out, but you know, and how the city is going to have to readjust to that.
Okay. Well, this kind of ties into your answer. Actually, the next question does. You know, Houston wants to continue with its economic development. I mean, I kind of feel personally, I feel like Houston itself is the diamond in the growth that is Texas and the Texas miracle. I've lived here for almost 20 years. We also want the quality of life issues, but I want to focus on the economic development for just a couple moments. Let's do 2 minutes on this answer. You said that your district has been losing population. What type of economic development would you support in your district in order to bring more, in order to make it more desirable for residents to live in?
That gets back to investing in children, because right now, only like 22% of kids that finish high school, only 22% of them go on to achieve any other kind of education. You know, that's not just college; it's an accreditation. You know, for a skill, they are not doing that. And the age we're in right now is all based on having additional education beyond high school. 60% of all jobs right now require that, and we're only having like a fifth of our children that are accomplishing it. So we have a lot of jobs that are not going filled, and we have a lot of people that, you know, that are not getting the training, the skills development they need. That is key. That is key. And because we cannot simply rely on importing millennials to work in Houston. We have to we have to capture this population. You know, they need to be they need to be the solution. You know, we have to do a much better job of supporting and making sure that we're funneling them, because when they have the training and then they're able to get good jobs, they're able to, you know, support their families, they're able to, you know, have a better quality of life. You know, we need jobs that, you know, that are here actually already, but we need people that are trained who can take them. Right now, it's interesting, very interesting to me that Houston Community College and all the community colleges, actually enrollment is down. You know, they have all, you know, that's where, you know, a lot of these training programs are that people could take advantage of, but enrollment is down because our economy is strong. And you can still get a job without having more education. The thing is, you can get a better job if you get some. And it's not just, you know, for our kids, but it's, you know, as the workforce is changing, you know, and we're moving more to automation and technology is changing stuff so much, it's important that a lot of adults go back to school, and you know, that's a challenge too.
Okay, Isabel?
Yeah, I think interestingly enough, we're almost competing with our suburbs, right? We know there are jobs in Houston and in the district, but where we compete so often is Houston and Texas in general with the rest of the country. A lot of folks are moving here because we're able to have affordable housing relative to other major cities. So we need to invest in keeping housing affordable, right? And some of those things we talked about earlier. Where we lose competition, again, nationally, is our public transportation system. So we need to think about investing in our public transportation and equitable systems like that. But again, we're losing really to some of our friends around Harris County and just outside who are able to offer those schools, those homes, that connected, that maybe the commute is the payoff, but people are living somewhere else and then working in Houston. And so, you know, I'm going to double down on affordable housing and all of these things. And when you talk about families and education as well, what brings families back, right? What helps schools improve is all of those other markers as well. Are we helping people get the jobs that are above, right, $10, $12, $15 an hour, because minimum wage as we have it now in Houston isn't cutting it? Are we helping folks graduate from high school and incentivize? And perhaps I'd love to explore a program that says, and kill two birds with one stone here, if you graduate from a Houston high school within city limits and you agree to live within the city limits for X number of years, we'll actually give you a job at the city and help you on kind of these long-term sustainable jobs. Because also at the city of Houston, we're losing employees left and right because the economy is so strong, and we don't compete with wages. We compete with some of the benefits, right? But quality of life and all of that, other industries are winning out. And so I think, you know, we also need to deal with the tough conversation of repealing the revenue cap, which would, on average, a family would have to spend $50 more per year, right, in taxes, because for $1 more a week, would you be interested in investing in more police officers, fixing those potholes, right? And being able to pay our municipal workers to get the services we deserve as a city. And to do that, we need to invest in the city to get the city we want.
Okay. Well, that brings up, you mentioned quality of life. So how would you, with economic development in District H, if going forward, how would you protect the quality of life for that district in the face of gentrification, in the face of you know, rising home values, whatever that may look like? How would you protect the district if you were elected?
Yeah.
Isabel?
I think we have some excellent partners in our local management districts and our other kind of nonprofits who are very community minded and saying, how do we build those parks, right? And not just get a piece of grass that we mow every once in a while, but how do we add those amenities that people like to come to? But also thinking about safety, right? If you're not building the sidewalks to get to these parks, people aren't walking to the parks. If you're not making sure that we have our officers really rotating in the neighborhoods efficiently, then people don't feel safe walking in their neighborhoods. And quite honestly, if we don't take care of the stray dogs, and we have some of the highest attacks on postal workers and individuals in Houston from stray dogs, then people aren't getting out of their houses because they're too scared to. And heck, people like me struggle block walking, right, and getting the word out to neighborhoods because you're being chased by packs of dogs. And so again, we have to build the city we want to invest in. And for those areas that already have the civic clubs, that have the management districts, they put some wonderful plans in place, and we just need to listen with them and execute at this point. point. We don't need to keep planning our lives away. And for the areas like our North Line, like our Denver Harbor, and to some extent even kind of the north of Independence Heights, which is really a no man's land, right? Where can we start building those programs and providing that leadership as a city council office to say, I know there's not a city, some entity we can lean on as a crutch, so the city has to pick up the slack here and really invest our time and resources there because the other entities are really highly represented.
Okay. All right, we've still got a few minutes, so I want to kind of pivot a little bit and ask you what kinds of things would you like to see? How would you like the city to invest in your districts, and what kinds of things would you like to see? If you had the purse strings all to yourself, what kinds of things would you like to see, Isabel?
Yeah, I would love to see really first and foremost a robust expanded BARC program with more dog catchers, right, for lack of a more technical term, because we need to make it a city that people find accessible, to get rid of those healthcare vectors, and then keep investing in infrastructure programs like that, right? We need to make sure that we're fixing roads and sidewalks, which is right now something that the homeowner is supposed to pay for. Let's start looking at a cost-sharing mechanism, especially between nodes that are highly traveled. And if I had the purse strings, absolutely keep investing in the expansion of the Houston Land Bank, the Houston Land Trust, right? And those programs which we know are going to build up affordable housing. Because it's kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If we make it safe enough for you to get out in the community, if we make it safe for you to live in that community, things kind of start naturally happening after that, both from outside investment and really the community being able to say, okay, these roadblocks have been cleared, right? This trash has been cleared. And so now I feel proud to live in this district, and I feel proud and safe to get out and do the work of growing it together.
Okay, council member.
If I could have all control of the money, and if there was additional money, that's the other part. I mean, if there's additional money, I would really put it towards police protection. We don't have enough police in our city, and we know, and what. That's the number one thing I think that people really would like to see is, to feel safe, to feel like they're, that they're protected, that the police response time is good. I think that's really important. But the city doesn't have enough money. Just about every department is under-resourced. The planning department, the permit department. I hear so much frustration about that it's hard to get projects out. And so it affects that affects the economy of the city. That if projects are delayed. And it's discouraging to the people who are trying to, the small business owners who are trying to get things done. That's something that but it all becomes a manning issue. We don't have enough personnel to be doing those things. Our libraries our city library is on the verge, right on the edge of not being accredited because of a formula that says you have to have a certain number of books, for the population. How can we be a world-class city if we can't maintain that? I mean, we are, but just barely over. And as there's continues to be additional cuts, that's something that's threatened. The quality of our parks. We are not able to invest in this. I really wish we could. There's a lack of park land in the North Line area. There's nothing at all. Between Tidwell and 610 and 45 and Hardy, nothing. And so to be able to purchase parks, to invest in them, to be able to have recreation centers instead of just a blank piece of land. Those cost money. People expect things from a city, and to not be able to provide them is so frustrating.
Okay. All right. Well, in the last couple of minutes that we have left, I'm going to have you all each tell me why you're the best candidate and how voters can learn more about your campaign and your issues. And we'll start with the council member.
I am the best candidate because I've got a record that I'm so proud to stand on. I've got a lot of experience now. I've got a strong staff. We are on a roll. We are getting things done. I am completely committed to the job I'm doing. As as the council member for District H. I am not seeking a higher office. I'm not trying to be anything else. This is what I'm here for. This is what I'm all about. To learn more about me, I hope you will, is to go to carlacisneros.com. There are a lot of links that go back to data that you can see and examples and find out more about what I'm doing, exactly what I've invested in, and what I've accomplished, and we're on a roll. Thank you.
Okay. And Isabel.
I'm excited, and I think I'm one of the best candidates and the best candidate for District H because I'm passionate. I love public service. I've dedicated both my professional life and my personal life to being out there, to talking to folks, to rolling my sleeves up and understanding what are the issues, and not just saying, here's what we can do at a high level, right, and a policy wonk and sitting at City Hall and thinking about all these things, but actually making those projects work locally, not when the camera was on me, not when I had the most power or the most money, but because I believe in these projects and I believe in change, and I believe it starts at the grassroots level. And so I'm excited to bring that passion, that experience, and really just my commitment to District H with my own pocketbook and with the city and with your resources as well, because Houston starts with H, but my campaign is focused on you. And you can learn more at isabellongoria.com. That's like Ava Longoria, ISABELLONGORIA.com, or on Facebook at Longoria4H. So I hope you visit. I hope you come out to one of our meet and greets. And if you feel so compelled, I hope you come volunteer with us as well.
All right. Well, I thank both of you for coming in tonight and sharing your views on what's going to be best for your district and for the city as a whole. It's been a very enlightening conversation. I hope you two enjoyed it as well.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
So early voting is begins just about 2 weeks away from today, and every year the League of Women Voters puts out its handy-dandy Houston area voters guide. The guide is where we pose sets of questions to the candidates from all of the races on the municipal ballot, number of local elections, and ask them for a written response. The voters guide will be available coming soon, probably in the next couple of weeks, just before early voting begins. And it will be available this year in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. So if you are interested, you can pick those up or see them online at lwvhouston.org. And I do thank everyone for joining us tonight for this Conversations with the Candidates. In just a few days, we will post this online, so if you didn't get a chance to watch it tonight, it will be available online at Houston Media Source on its YouTube channel, and also be on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. For the League of Women Voters of the Houston area, I'm Tim Langford. I do appreciate your time tonight, and enjoy your weekend.